and welcome to Scare You to Sleep. I'm your host, Shelby Novak, and I'm here to bring you a couple of Scare You to Sleep classics. This week is both the 8th anniversary of the show and the week I am doing a very big move, so thank you so much for sticking around and enjoying a couple reruns. Maybe you even missed them the first time, or maybe you're new here and you've never heard them at all. This also gives me a chance to clear a couple things up about this first story. It does not contain bugs, insects, or arachnids of any kind. When I first published it, I found out two things. One, because of the title, many people understandably thought it was about bugs and skipped it. And two, the term bug out bag is very much not universal. So again, no bugs, and a bug out bag, also called a go bag, is a bag you have filled with supplies you can grab in case of an emergency. So, now that those two things have been cleared up, I hope this story finds a whole new audience because between you and I, it's one of my favorites. This is Bug Out.
Welcome to Bug Out, where we surprise 10 average Americans in the middle of the night and tell them it is time to bug out. They grab their gear and we drop them at different points of the Novakova forest on Newell Island, where they compete to outlast each other for 90 days in the untamed wilderness for a grand prize of $100,000. So do you have what it takes to bug out?
Well, hello, Internet people. My name is Stephanie. I am currently a little drunk and a lot high, and I have finally decided to tell my story. Best case scenario, you'll all think I'm crazy or an outright liar, making shit up for phony internet points. Worst case is, I don't know, I'll be sued out my ass or taken out by the CIA or some shit. Either way, holding on to this is not worth my sanity anymore. Not that I have much of that left. Here I sit in the dark living room of my dirty apartment with a glowing rectangle of my laptop in front of me, ready to blow up my whole life. Am I doing this to raise awareness to my fellow man about the crazy shit that goes on around us, the things they don't want us to know about? You know, them, the men in black, the Illuminati, that furniture website who secretly sells kids, the people who are really in charge, the ones that know things, that keep things from the rest of us, lest we go completely nuts. You know, they do think that there was a whole advanced civilization, whole civilizations before the ancient Sumerians who had full-blown computers and electricity, and that maybe, just maybe, they flew a little too close to the sun and stumbled on some knowledge that scared them so much that they abandoned all that shit and went back to farming and inventing the written language all over again. Maybe they really are protecting us. Or maybe they don't want us to find our way out from under the proverbial boot and become a happy utopian society, and I'm going to risk my life telling you all a teeny tiny piece of those secrets they're keeping. Or I just got fired from another shit job, and my dating life is fucked. But not literally, which is the problem, and I want to share this awful burden because misery loves company. Either way, keep scrolling, my friend. I need to tell you about David. But first, some background, so this whole batshit story makes more sense. So, about 7 years ago, I was living in LA as the personal assistant to a mid-level producer. He had produced some big TV shows in the 90s, but it had been years since he had done anything really relevant. And that's how he got talked into producing this dumb shit reality show. Through the sticky spider web we call networking, he had been introduced to this husband and wife who pitched the idea of this show to him. Oh my god, they were so fucking weird. But I can't get sidetracked. Just know that they gave off major are they siblings or dating vibes. So the show. The show is about surviving in the wilderness. Of course, this has been done before. I could name tens of shows like this already on air, but I don't want to get double sued for, I don't know, libel somehow. Of course, every show needs a twist to set it apart from its almost indistinguishable competition. So this show's twist was, they wanted to find people who were only sort of into doomsday prepping and survivalism. They didn't want people who actually knew how to do very well in the wilderness. They wanted the people who would make hilarious and frustrating TV for viewers to tune in every week. Bumbling idiots trying to start fires with flints they had no idea how to use, trying to pitch their cheap sporting goods section tents in the rain, and hunting for squirrels with overpowered assault rifles. They basically proposed, what if just some average Joe had to survive an apocalypse? Someone the audience could laugh at, and maybe even empathize with. As good as, some guy named Thor could identify every type of mushroom known to man and could field dress anything with a pulse while building a fully functional and heated shelter out of river clay and sticks was at surviving, the audience can't, see themselves in Thor. They can't laugh at Thor. Thor is better than them. So, born was this idea of just some guy survival TV. The antithesis to the uber serious, blue filtered survival shows those other channels were making. That wasn't enough for my boss, though. He wanted one more edge, and he's the one who came up with the idea of kidnapping the contestants. His reasoning was that he wanted it to feel like a real emergency. Like if you were really woken up one day and had to leave the house in a hurry, and whatever you grabbed was all you could use to survive. There was some arguing over the liability of actually kidnapping people, even if they had signed up for it. So they compromised and instead decided they would let the contestants know they had been chosen. But they weren't told when they would actually be starting their 90 days. Then, one night, they would be woken up with lights and sirens and screaming military-esque actors who would tell them to go, 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 and they were expected to grab their bug-out bags and whatever else they could carry on their backs and get into a van where they would be taken to their drop-off point. Well, they actually spent a few days in a hotel while they waited for the other contestants' kidnapping segments to be filmed. There was no budget for us to send camera crews to 10 different locations on the same night. But still, they were pretty heavily monitored and their bags were confiscated during their hotel stay, so they couldn't add anything to them before going out into the boonies. So apart from all that, this was all taking place on an island off the coast of British Columbia. Even though the contestants were given their own cameras to document the bulk of the show, we still had a full camera crew booked for the initial send-off and the finale. But in between, it was just going to be a lot of waiting around for people to tap out one at a time. For big chunks, there was nothing to film but the health checks every 2 weeks to make sure the remaining contestants were still of sound-ish body and mind. Other than that, we were relying on the footage from the contestants themselves. So, for most of the season, we had a skeleton crew of 2 camera guys, a sound guy, 1 actual survivalist, and 1 wilderness EMT, and a local ranger spot. That was filled by a few different rangers who worked in revolving shifts. Oh, and a producer. That's where I come in. See, my producer knew he wanted eyes on the whole production, but he didn't want to be out in the frozen wilderness for 3 months. Even if we were staying in a couple cozy cabins and not in flimsy tents on the ground, it still wasn't the Ritz. Neither did his fellow couple producers. I cannot express how shit this production was, how cheap, how many corners were cut. Anyway, back to the point. So yeah, my boss wanted eyes that he could trust on the whole thing. But he didn't want to spend any extra money. So, he negotiated with me. "Stephanie," he said, "if you go for your regular salary I already pay you, I will give you a producer credit." I'd like to say I hesitated, but that would be a lie. I jumped on that producer credit so fast. It was like a golden ticket. If I did a good enough job, then my boss would give me more producing opportunities, and those credits could get me out from under him, and I could become a producer all on my own. I had fucking stars in my eyes, you guys. I was planning what I'd be wearing to the Oscars in 5 years, for Christ's sake. All I could see was the life I had worked so hard for finally coming true. I had no idea what would end up happening would destroy so many lives and leave me in an unending existential crisis, drunkenly ranting on internet forums like those loons who claim to get abducted by aliens. The first 2 weeks was a blur. To be honest, I don't even remember what David's kidnapping segment was like. Yeah, we're back to David now. I do remember one guy freaked out and dumped his entire silverware drawer in his bug-out bag, but didn't remember to grab his hunting rifle. He went home pretty quick. I never saw his footage, but I imagine it would have been hilarious watching him dump all those forks and butter knives out, trying to figure out how to justify bringing them to the camera. The audience would have loved it. Oh, and another guy tried to bring his dog. His argument was that we said, "Whatever you can carry," and he could technically carry his dog. Yeah, you got us there, sir, but we aren't flying your shivering greyhound to an island that is about to be an average high of 44 degrees Fahrenheit. That took so much convincing. I was in full producer mode. I ended up just giving him an ultimatum to leave the pooch or don't do the show. And he wasn't about to give up his 15 minutes. So, the dog stayed. David. The only odd thing I know he grabbed was a framed photo of his family. Him and his wife and 2 kids. But the only reason I know that is... we'll get to that. Okay. I know how the internet is. I'm actually sobering up a bit now. I know you're here for the spooky part. So, I'll get to it, you animals. So we were about 32 days in. The crew was all split between 2 cabins. It was mostly just boring. Like I said, the only time we really did anything was every 2 weeks. So by then, we had done 2 checks. The first one was uneventful, but the second, one woman, Cheryl, I think her name was, went home. Cheryl broke down just at the sight of us. She grabbed onto our EMT Alex's jacket and howled, "Take me home, take me home." Just sobbing, wailing sobbing. I've never seen someone so distressed. We got her back to our camp, got her warm, pumped her full of electrolytes and food. Then we sat her down for her exit interview. All within a few hours. Time is money, you know? By then, she had pulled herself together. She said it was a rewarding experience, but she was in over her head, and she turned that into some long rant about how she had more respect now for our troops and how kids these days need to watch this show so they could too have more respect for the troops. Yeah, it didn't make sense to me either, but the lady had been living on squirrel meat and seaweed for like 2 weeks. But, and this is something I didn't remember till way later, I'm talking years later, it's not like I forgot, but I hadn't ever connected the dots. Shit, maybe I still haven't. Anyway, Cheryl and I were standing near the clearing where the helicopter would land to take her back to the mainland. She would go home for now, and we'd bring her back for the big finale. I had pulled out a little handheld camera that I had brought along. I thought it would be a fun surprise when we started editing to show I got some extra, more raw-looking footage. I thought it would score me good producer points for my boss and his colleagues. Looking back, it was kind of a stupid idea. But at the time, I felt like a cinematic genius. The rest of the crew had gone back inside the cabins, so I took my chance to do a little mini interview with Cheryl. Look, I'm not going to transcribe it, but you can click on this link. I'll post what I have. Sorry about the terrible video quality. Something happened to all my tapes and fucked with the video. The audio is still pretty good, though.
This is Cheryl about to board the helicopter to go home. Cheryl, I know you already did your exit interview, but if you forgot anything or have anything more to say, feel free to tell me now.
What is this? Is this going to be used for the show?
Maybe. This is just a little side project I'm doing.
I need you to be honest with me. Did you send someone out there?
Out where? To the forest?
There was something out there that last night. You sent someone out there to scare me so I would lose.
Oh, no. We didn't send anyone. The only people even here are me and Mike.
Tell me now. You sent someone out there. There was something out there stalking around. It felt like a dream.
No, we didn't. We know the wilderness is tough enough. We didn't send anyone to scare you.
I know how this reality TV works. It isn't a secret these days. We all know you manipulate things. I just don't appreciate what you did. You made me look foolish.
Cheryl, I swear we didn't send anyone. You said it felt like a dream. Maybe it was just a nightmare?
Are you stupid? I said it felt like a dream. I didn't say it was a dream. I can't explain it. There was something out there. The shadows were different.
The shadows? There's the helicopter now. Look, Cheryl, I promise. Why don't I book you a day at the hotel spa? On us. Cheryl?
I tried to track down Cheryl last year to ask her more about what she saw, to maybe get some more answers. But her family informed me that she had passed away. Soon after she got back home from the show, Cheryl's doctor discovered an aggressive type of thyroid cancer that developed abnormally quickly, and 4 months later, she was gone. Now, yes, we can officially get back to David. Like I said, it was about 32 days in. We were all bored out of our minds. It was me, our sound guy Frank, the camera people Terry and Andreas, EMT Alex, survivalist Rick, and that night the ranger on duty was Ranger Rhodes. Rhodes was outside doing some general maintenance to one of the cabins. I can't remember what. I just remember passing them outside and they were carrying a ladder and mumbling about getting something fixed before the first big snow. It was early November, and the really cold season was creeping up fast. I was inside teaching Alex how to play blackjack. Frank was in the corner fiddling with some of his sound equipment, and Terry and Andreas and Rick were in the other cabin, just passing the time in some way, same as the rest of us. With a waning amount of sunlight and lack of activities, some of us sort of had our nights and days mixed up. Alex and I had become night owls, taking on the unofficial night shift, listening for the satellite phone to possibly go off with someone wanting to tap out. Whenever we had contestants tap out, we basically told them to wait until morning for safety's sake, where we would board into a helicopter sent from the mainland and go pick them up in a clearing, usually near the beach since the forest was so thick. All of them stayed pretty close to the beach anyway. They never minded waiting, only 2 so far had called out at night, and they were perfectly fine with spending one last night in the wilderness. It gave them a chance to sort of reflect to the cameras privately about why they had decided to leave and what the money would have meant to them, but their health was more important and yada yada yada. This time was different though. This time, David called. When it rang, I checked my watch and for some reason, I remember the exact time. 1:11 a.m. Alex was the closest, so they answered. Alex barely got out the word base camp before I could hear an urgent voice on the other end. Alex was young, and this wasn't exactly their job, so they just started into the script they'd heard the rest of us use. Stay put till morning, then call us at daylight with your coordinates on the closest beach. But I could tell something was up. Something was different. The voice kept interrupting, and one distinct word I kept catching was now. I took the phone from Alex, and thus began the worst night of my life. The beginning was basically this. David begging to be picked up now, telling us we had to come, and that something rushed him like it wanted to attack him. That he tried to wait until morning because he was also developing a terrible sunburn-like rash he had been concerned with, but he couldn't wait any longer because something was outside his tent. He said to bring guns. It was around then that I decided to grab my camcorder. Again, the video is fucked, but this link will take you to what happened that night. You can maybe follow along. I turned it off a couple times, so there are some time jumps. Look, just listen, okay?
Okay, David, can you say that again for me? You have to come now. There's something here. The shadows. The shadows all feel backwards. You have to get out here. I can't wait till morning. I'll be dead then. I'm recording all of this. You'll be liable. You have to get out here.
Whoa. Okay, I just need to wake up the team. Our survivalist Rick, remember Rick? And the ranger will let us know if it's safe to come get you. David? David, are you still there?
Just get here. Now. Please. I'm going to die.
You are not going to die. I won't let that happen. But I'm going to hang up now. I will call you right back. I have to go get everyone. Will you be okay for 3 minutes, 5 minutes tops?
Just hurry.
Okay, so we'll also just send out Terry and Frank. Can't all fit in the truck. One camera should do it. Sounds good. Frank, you got all your gear ready?
Yeah.
Okay, Steph, you can hang back too. No, I'm going. I really think you should stay here. This is stupid and dangerous as it is. I'm going. That's not even a question. And if you have a problem with that, we can talk in the morning about your continued employment with this show.
Come on.
Jesus crap. Are you filming this? This is a safety meeting. You're filming and you're threatening our jobs? That's fucking great.
We have about 10 more miles to go. Do you want to call him again? After we get there, we still have 3 miles to hike to his location.
Yeah, I'll call him again.
Are you here?
Hey, David! No, we aren't quite there yet, but I wanted to give you an update. The ranger is saying that we have about 10 miles to drive and about 3 miles to hike. So it's going to be another hour or so, depending on what the terrain looks like when we get into the woods.
But you're coming, right?
Yeah, man, we're coming. Just calm down. Stay in your shelter and don't go outside until you know for sure that we're there.
David, what's the thing stalking you? Was it a bear or a mountain lion or what? It would be helpful to know what we could be encountering when we get closer.
I don't know. But there were more. Now they're gone. But I don't think that they're far.
Sounds like wolves. Motherfucker. We might have to call in some backup. I called in my base already. They already know we're on our way out, and they're on their way into our base camp. They'll be behind us as soon as they land. You hear that, David? Lots of help on the way. Just stay put, okay? And try to keep calm.
You don't.
Why do you even have that thing? It's pitch black. It's not making jack shit. I don't know. I thought maybe we could use the audio. That's what Frank's here for. Terry, just do your fucking job, okay? And I'll do mine. Shut up, the both of you. We're getting closer. Steph, do something useful and get David back on the phone. We're almost there. Are you fucking kidding me? Steph, goddammit, just do it. Put down that stupid camera. Terry's right. You aren't picking up anything. You're going to twist an ankle if you don't start paying more attention.
Are you here?
Hey, David. We're closing in on your campsite. We should be there in about 10 minutes. And just wanted to check on you one more time.
I'll be in my tent.
That motherfucker hung up on me. David? David? Hello? I checked his tent. There's no one here. Maybe he got spooked again and tried to hide in the woods. Let's get him back on the phone.
You have to be here by now. It's been over 10 minutes.
Hey, buddy. Yeah, we are here. But where are you?
What do you mean? I'm here. I'm at my campsite. I'm in the tent. You told me to wait in the tent.
What? No. Did you send us the right coordinates? Maybe we're at the wrong campsite because you're not here.
What do you mean I'm not here? I know where I am.
We used the GPS tracker on his camera equipment. Did he lose any of it before he moved camps? David, did you hear that? Did you maybe lose some of your equipment, like when you moved camps? If so, that's totally fine. But you aren't where we are, and we just need to...
I never moved camps. I've been in the same place this whole time.
David,
I'm in my tent. I stayed in my tent like you said.
Okay, look, I'm staring at a yellow tent.
Yes, that's me. I'm in the yellow tent, but I can't hear anyone outside.
No, you don't understand. We checked the yellow tent. There's no one inside.
I'm coming out.
What the fuck is going on? I don't know.
Okay. I'm standing outside my tent. I'm gonna yell, okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah, on the phone, but we didn't hear anything in the woods.
How? What the? My family. I brought a picture of my family. I nailed it to the tree, to the right of my tent.
Yeah, Rick, you're near it. What does it look like? They're all wearing matching pajamas. The one where you're all wearing matching pajamas?
No, Yes, but I'm standing here, looking at that photo. You don't see me?
I don't understand what's going on. Maybe he's sick and delusional. Bad water or a fever can do that to you. Let's fan out and see if we can find him.
Please, I'm not delusional. I'm standing right here, but I can't see you.
Guys? Is that his sat phone? I think so. What the fuck? Before they all left, I used a label maker to put their names on the back of their sat phones. It says David. Jesus Christ.
What happened?
David, we found your sat phone. The one you're talking to me on right now.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed
He's
be
just
thy
praying
name.
now. I
Thy
don't know what to do.
kingdom come, thy
What the
will
fuck
be
do
done
we do?
on earth as it is in
I'm
heaven.
calling the other
Give us
contestants.
this day our daily
What if he
bread,
broke into one of their
and forgive us
campsites and
our
took their phone?
trespasses, as
We could be
forgive
dealing
those
with someone who
trespass against us,
has
and lead us
gone
not into temptation,
completely insane out here.
from evil. Amen.
Are you still filming? What the fuck, Steph? I'm reporting you to the union when we get back.
Oh, fuck off, Tara.
Everyone who has a sat phone, here's the sheet with the remaining contestants. Rhodes, you start with Charles and Bethany. I'll take Priya and Walter. Rick, take Jose and Doug. Steph, just keep David on the phone. David, we're going to make a few calls, okay? Just sit tight. Why don't you tell me, what are your kids' names? Have been accounted for, so he hasn't gone to any other camps.
They're back. Jesus, my Lord and Savior. I'm back in the tent. They're back. They're back, and they saw me. They know where I am.
David, calm down. We're right here. We're going to figure this out.
Oh, God, oh, God, oh, God. They're here. I don't know what they are. What are you? Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy...
David? David? David, it's dead. He's gone. What?
That, dear readers, is where my camera's battery died. All our equipment died out there. All of it fully charged. Even the unused backup camera batteries were dead. After that came a flurry of rescue teams. We pulled the rest of the contestants immediately and sent them home. We split the prize money among the remaining 6 and told them in the vaguest of terms that there had been an emergency and we were pulling the plug. There was a months-long search for David, until the island became coated in ice and snow, and was too treacherous to keep looking. In the spring, they tried for 2 more weeks, but nothing. Not a trace was ever found. Oh, and I know you're all cracking those knuckles to go on a deep dive to find evidence of this show, and when you don't, you'll be back to call me a liar. But you don't know show business, baby. You especially don't know how evil some of these people are, how low they'll stoop. The family was given a fat settlement. How much? I don't know. Enough to shut them up. Plus, due to the dangerous nature of the show, it wasn't out of the realm of possibility that something could have gone wrong. So I think they just sort of eventually accepted that their loving husband and father was just another victim of that untamed wilderness that he had willingly signed up for. All of the footage of the show was destroyed. So was all the promotional stuff that was already being mocked up. All that was saved was a test promo I had on a flash drive and my little camera. That was because no one had any idea I had it in the first place. At least, none of the people with lawyers breathing down their necks. The others never mentioned it to the producers. I sort of wonder if they wanted to save it too. The only evidence of what really happened that night. We were all forced to sign terrifying NDAs, and we even spoke to some feds. Seriously, by the time we got back to base camp the next morning to shower and rest while the other rescue team took over, there was a big black helicopter parked on the lawn, and several men in suits there to let us know it would be in our best interest to keep the entire affair to ourselves. One of them even mentioned how undignified deathbed confessions were. Like, they wanted us to take this to the grave. After that, even though we all went our separate ways, I kept tabs on the crew who was with me out in the woods that night, through social media and mutual friends. Hollywood is actually a pretty small town, so it wasn't hard. Ranger Rhodes and Terry are both long gone, each of them having developed different forms of cancer shortly after we wrapped. I heard Frank is still kicking around town, working in sound still, but through the grapevine I heard that he's been in and out of jail and rehab for heroin. Rick, the survivalist, went off the grid a few years back. I have no idea where he is. No one seems to. He just walked into the woods one day and poof, gone. Little Alex, my blackjack buddy. Alex is the hardest to talk about. One night, Alex wrote a letter, bought some rope, and decided to disappear in their own way. So there it is. I can practically feel the red sniper dot on my forehead. Because something is out there in those woods. Why do you think so many people disappear every year with nary a fucking finger bone to ever be found? I don't know what all of it means. All I know is I never want to end up where the shadows are backwards. Next up is an older classic from the very early days of the show. One of the first listener submissions I ever did, actually. This is by author Cameron Gorman, and this is Static. I've never told anyone this story because I didn't think they'd believe me. I wouldn't believe me either normally. I'd probably toss it aside, forget about it, type up some stupid comment on the internet calling the story a bunch of BS. But it happened. And you don't have to believe me. I just need to tell someone and for them to listen. It's hard holding something like this in for so long, and I have the feeling I might not have much time left to tell it. So, here it goes. In the summer of 1990, I decided to clean out the attic of my childhood home. I felt I had to do it for my dad. He'd finally passed away from lung cancer. All that smoking he did really did a number on him, I guess. Mom had died years earlier, and my dad had been all alone for a while. No one to talk to. I tried visiting him, but you know how it gets. It's hard sometimes. Life moves so fast, and people are so busy, and I guess I just stopped going as often. When I got the news that he'd passed away, from his neighbor no less, I did feel a little guilty. The least I could do for my old man was to clean up his place. So I drove, all the way from 3 towns over, to do it myself. That summer was a hot one. The trees were all dropping their leaves early, thirsty from the dry air. I remember driving along the road to that house, the dirt kicking up behind my beat-up old Chevy. The radio turned down low to some stupid soft rock station. I wasn't really listening. I was just staring at the road. I had gotten a late start that day, later than I had wanted to due to drinking the night before. I hadn't packed up the car and gotten on the road until nearly 3:45 in the afternoon, and now the light was beginning to glow a soft orange, the shadows pulling longer around me. I felt myself grip the steering wheel tighter, turn up the music a little more to drown out my thoughts. I couldn't explain why exactly, but there was a slight feeling of dread at the back of my throat, as if I was driving into something I didn't want to. I felt the darkness behind me and drove a little faster, laughing at myself. What did I have to be scared of? I knew this place like the back of my hand, as well as the woods whipping past either side of the car's windows in the evening light. There was nothing to be afraid of, but I couldn't quite convince myself of that. Not really. As I drove further and further away from my home, and closer to my dad's, it got harder to ignore the buzzing at the base of my skull. Like the kind of feeling you get as a little kid about to walk into a haunted house on the boardwalk. Something inside you whispering, "Don't do it. There's something bad in there." I knew it wasn't the house itself. It was the memory of my dad. He'd always been so distant during my childhood. He'd hole himself up in his room almost as soon as I'd get back from school, preferring to watch the big game on the weekends over going out with me or my mom. She'd always shook her head when I asked her about it, simply said something to the effect of, "You know your dad, he's quiet." Never felt like that to me, felt more like he was hiding from me. By the time I pulled up to the house, as I had suspected, the afternoon was in full swing. Neighbors' cars were pulling into driveways back from the day's work and commute, and I was left to stand in my old backyard, staring up at the house I used to come home to every day after school. I forced myself to pull a long smile looking at it. After all, I did know this place, I told myself, and still, there was that slight buzzing. I got out of the car, switched off the radio, and stretched. Long drive, I thought. It would have been nice to be able to rest, but I wanted to just get this project on the road already. The last thing I wanted was to have to spend the night here. It just didn't feel right. Glancing back at the woods that bordered the house, I noted the length of the shadows and the tilt of the sun, just beginning to dip a little bit in the sky. Since it was summer, I knew I'd have at least a few hours to move stuff out to the curb or into my car to take with me before it dipped below the horizon and into the night. But I had to get moving. I locked my car, slipped my keys into my pocket, and ambled up toward the back of the house. I unlocked the door as I pulled a note stuck to the chip paint off, scanning it quickly. It was from the guy managing my dad's estate, as I had suspected, with a few notes that I didn't really read as I swung the door open and stepped into the musty air of the back hall. It was all typical stuff, telling me where to find things I should know about, locking the place up when I left, and a few more notes about the house and timelines. I tossed it on the kitchen counter, walking into the house and breathing in the familiar air. It was strange to be back. Glancing around the kitchen, I could see visions of a younger me sitting at the counter, eating cereal at the table, grumbling over math homework while my dad tried to help me. Every inch of this house held a memory. I ran my hand along the counter, glancing around at the dust covering most of the furniture. Dad must not have been able to clean as well in the later years, I thought. A sudden pang of guilt bit back at my insides, but I flushed it from my mind. There was no point in crying over something I couldn't change, I reminded myself. I was here to do a job. I hoisted my backpack over my shoulders and started up the stairs toward the second floor. Each step creaked the same way I remembered them to, in the same places. The wall held the same splattered coffee stain from when I had tripped running back into the kitchen during a late-night high school SAT study session. I smiled a little, chuckling to myself. Those really weren't helpful. Reaching the top of the stairs, I glanced down the hallway to my old bedroom, deciding that the little trip down memory lane could wait until another day. This was more important. I turned toward the master bedroom, patting down the hall on the old beige carpet. This was fine, I thought. I could do this. It wasn't so bad after all. Then I reached the door, and my hand hesitated on the brass doorknob. That buzzing sensation at the base of my skull was back. If I opened this door, I remember thinking, maybe Dad would be there. Maybe in the fading light of the bedroom, he would look just as I remembered him from the last time I'd visited. Propped up in bed, the remains of a cigarette crushed out in the ashtray balanced on his feeble chest, staring at me as if I could save him somehow. A bead of sweat ran down the back of my neck. No, this was silly. There was nothing more to be afraid of. He was gone. I turned the knob and stepped into the room. Immediately, the smell of tar hit me like a subway train. It reeked of smoke in that room. The walls were stained with yellowing blossoms of nicotine, distorting the flowers that used to pattern the wallpaper. I wrinkled my nose. I had been used to this, but so much time away had made me forget how potent it could be. Pinching the bridge of my nose, I avoided looking at the bed, at the spot that Dad used to take up, in the middle of the still rumpled sheets. I turned instead toward the closet, where I knew the ladder to the attic could be pulled down. When I was a kid, I used to ask my dad why he wasn't afraid of having that ladder in his room. Wasn't he afraid something could use it to hide, to come down in the middle of the night and wrap its tendrils or claws around his neck, its mouth oozing with some kind of slime? My dad always laughed his hearty, smoke-choked laugh and ruffled my hair. There's nothing in that closet, he'd always told me. And I knew it was true even then, but I still glanced behind me when I opened the door. You know that feeling like someone's eyes are on your back, even when you're turned around? That was the feeling I got, all of a sudden, standing in that room. I whipped my head back toward the open bedroom door and the darkening hallway behind it. A grown woman, scared by a memory. I suddenly felt like a kid who has to run up the basement steps after switching off all the lights. My heart fluttered, but I steeled myself. Come on, man, this is childish. You're here to do a job and nothing else. The house is empty. Moving faster, I swung open the closet door, revealing Dad's smoky plaid shirts and Bass Pro tops. I yanked at a rope attached to the ceiling, and it creaked open, yawning to reveal its chipped ladder, clanking open and nearly hitting me in the head. I jumped back. The dust mote-filled quiet of the house was suddenly cracked by the sound of the ladder, creaking as it swayed in the still air. I breathed in, deep, and glanced behind me, to the still open bedroom door. The hallway was still dark and silent. Nothing at all to be worried about. So I put my foot on the bottom rung and pulled myself up. The inside of the attic was pitch dark. My eyes swam to adjust to the light, and I tugged on a string attached to a bare wooden ceiling to readjust myself. It was pretty much what I expected. Plain mounds of cardboard boxes stacked halfway up the pink insulated walls. Boring. No vampires or monsters or spirits to be found. I mentally slapped myself for being so scared of it in the first place. Glancing around, I wondered what to get to first. I could see boxes clearly left over from the original move into the house, labeled with the names of different rooms. Probably full of old dishes and silverware, nothing I wanted to get into, though I silently wondered if it might be good for an estate sale. Instead, my eyes and attention latched onto one box, sitting by itself at the far end of the attic, silently waiting for someone to open it. It was the same size and shape as all the other unremarkable ones around it, but there was no markered label. It was blank. I slowly walked over, minding the whines of the floorboards as I did so, and bent down to check it out. Under the harsh light of the bare bulb above us, the coat of dust covering it seemed extra thick. I doubted anyone had been up here in years, not even Dad. It had become so hard for him to get around in the last few years of his life anyway. I cracked open the thing, peeling away the yellowed packing tape and pulling out the mouse-bitten tissue paper. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't what I got. An old CB radio sitting in a box. I shook my head, a slight smile creeping onto my face. Just like Dad to save something useless like this. I started to stand up from my squatting position, feeling my knees crack as I did so, turning my attention elsewhere in the attic. As I stepped away from the box, though, I suddenly heard a slight crackle. The buzzing came back. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. As much as I tried to ignore it, the radio, still lying in its tissue-papered grave, was coming to life. Slowly, I turned back to face the box. The radio was fully on now, humming a static sound, the occasional pop fading in and out of the white noise. I felt my mind start to race. The batteries would have to be long dead by now, I thought, the sweat that had previously dried beginning to make my neck damp again. The muggy air in the attic suddenly felt so much heavier, scented with the unbearable weight of the tobacco smoke. I stood there for what felt like hours, listening to the radio static, waiting for something to happen. The tension in the attic was unbearable. I was hyper aware of the box, of the ladder, of the growing darkness down in the house. I was frozen, and the radio crackled again. There was something coming through, though. Something barely audible over the sound of the static. Something that I wasn't even sure if I was hearing. It was so quiet, so soft, so much like the sound of the radio itself. But I know I heard it. I know it. It was a voice. Something small and quiet sounding. Something that barely crackled forth. It was saying something I could barely make out. I couldn't move.
Where did he put us?
Oh God, that voice, like a human voice, but filtered through years of not talking, like something waking up from a 10-year sleep, trying out its speech again. It kept whispering, and I was rooted to the spot, unable to move. The voice was growing louder. Down the ladder, I could see that the house was dark. I made a lunge toward the radio, ripped it from the box, and ripped the batteries from the damn thing. Silence. Blessed silence. And then, down in the house, I heard the familiar creak of the staircase. The familiar sound of someone coming up the stairs. At first it was slow, like they were resting on each step. Then, faster, faster, faster. The sound of someone pounding up the stairs. The sound of someone running down the hallway. Then, suddenly, the footsteps stopped. Right outside my father's bedroom door. My heart stopped. The same voice from the radio was now drifting to me from outside the bedroom door in the dark hallway. From the attic, I could barely see the entrance to the room, only a black rectangle from the darkness of the rest of the house. Then, on the door frame, a finger curled around the white molding. Just one finger, moving up and down as if feeling to see if anyone else was in the room. Then another, shaded by the darkness of the bedroom. Another, until one whole hand was sticking out from the darkness of the hallway, flexing in the light that spilled from the attic. I had stopped sweating now. My blood ran cold. And the voice started again. Had one last thing to say. You know where he put us. And suddenly, there was the loud clap of the attic ladder rolling up, shutting with a bang, obscuring my view of the hallway. I couldn't help it. I finally screamed. When I got out of that damn house, when I finally managed to gather the courage to open the attic and run from the bedroom back to my car, to start it and drive away without even bothering to lock the back door, I cried. On the way back to my town, I cried harder than I've ever cried, before or since. And that's why I'm telling you this story. Because I do know where they are. I know where my father buried them. All those boys from neighboring towns who had run away from home. Or so the police assured us. All those friends I had who I never saw again. They're under the house. Under the concrete. Under where I used to drink to try to pretend I didn't know what my old man was. They know that I know. And you don't have to believe me, but I needed to tell someone. To confess. To do the right thing for one time in my pathetic life. You don't have to believe me, but I know what he did. I know what I should have done, but didn't. And I'm going back there tomorrow to tell them the truth. Thanks for listening, and thank you to, well, I guess both my authors. Thank you to Cameron Gorman. The first author was me, so thanking myself feels redundant and weird. If you like the show, please go follow it on social media at scareyoutosleep on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. If you'd like to follow me personally, you can follow me at Shelby B. Novak on Instagram and Twitter. If you have a story you'd like considered to be on the show, you can send it to scareyoutosleep@gmail.com. And if you'd like ad-free episodes of the show, please consider joining the Patreon, patreon.com/scareyoutosleep, where you can also find bonus episodes of the show. And if you missed it, earlier this week I released a feed drop of the new Dead Space podcast. It's fantastic. I've already mentioned on the show that I was so honored to be a part of the new Dead Space podcast. Please go check that out. Again, there's a feed drop in the beginning of the week that has the entire first episode, but the first 2 episodes are available wherever you listen to podcasts. And by the time you're listening to this, there will be a new merch store available. I will put it in the show notes. It will also be available in my link tree, but just for this week since it's brand new, I'll put the direct link in the show note. I am going to be using a brand new merch company, so please go check that out. There's some of the merch from last time. I'm going to be more involved in the merch process in the future. So I'm really excited to start doing some limited edition merch, some different artwork and things. And so watch out. I'll announce all of those drops in the future. So for now, it's some, Scary to Sleep merch, and there's some really cool stuff on there. There are aprons. You can wear an apron and bake along with me. There are water bottles, so you can remember to drink your water. And of course, t-shirts. There's a denim jacket that has Scary to Sleep embroidered, like on the breast. It's really cute. And hoodies. Let's see, tank tops. There's a tote bag, a candle, an unscented candle. For those of you out there like me who scents make you have a headache. And so unscented candle, just to set the ambiance, says Scary to Sleep on there. There's also a pillow that says Scary to Sleep on one side and Sweet Dreams on the other. So go find, there's something for everyone. Go check it out. I'm also going to be adding the Meet Me by the Haunted Lighthouse merch that so many of you enjoyed, as well as the O'Male Swamp Tour departing every evening at sunset merch that I know a lot of you loved too. That one sold really well last time. And again, I'm going to be experimenting with some new artwork. But yeah, go check it out. I'm really excited. And it's to honor, again, the 8th anniversary of the show and me starting my entire life over again. Thanks to the show. Thanks to all of you and the show. So yeah, please consider going to buy some merch. So, moving is very expensive, especially when you're starting from complete scratch. Some of you out there understand what I'm talking about. By the way, I am still planning on doing that life update. Again, going to be doing that as a bonus episode on the Patreon. It will be out in the next couple weeks once I'm settled into my new abode. For baking this week, by the way, if you're new here, I do a little section at the end of the show where I unwind with you and ramble a little bit about my week, usually tell you what I baked that week because I bake about once a week. And so if you would rather just skedaddle and not listen to that, that is completely fine. I will see you next week. Have a good evening. But if you'd like to stick around, here we go. So this week, I actually had my grandmother teach me how to make tortillas, which she had taught me how to do when I was a child, and as an adult, I've attempted them, but they never turned out like hers when I would try to make them as an adult. So I actually asked her, can you please, I called her from the store and said, what do you need to make tortillas? I am going to buy them, whatever you need. And I got the stuff, came over, and we had a great lesson. I actually filmed the whole thing so I can have a video of her, and she was telling me stories about her mother and grandmother growing up in Sonora, and my great-grandmother had a pretty wild history when it came to growing up in Mexico, and it's really fascinating. Of course, I'm not going to post those videos. They're very private, but it was a great experience, and I highly recommend if your grandparents, or anyone, honestly, your parents, aunts, uncles, whoever are around and they enjoy a certain hobby, even if it's not baking, but my particular love is cooking, I recommend taking a video of them and chatting and just having them chat about what they used to do. We're so fortunate to have that technology at our fingertips these days, and I wish I had done it with my other grandmother who just passed, because I used to love hearing her talk about the old days. And I never thought to get a video of her. In fact, one thing that I noticed when I was putting together a slideshow for her funeral was there weren't enough pictures of her in her element cooking. And I don't mean that in some sort of anti-feminist way. She was just a fantastic baker, cook. And I wanted so many, that's where a lot of my happy memories were. And I realized, we just don't think to take pictures in that during that time, during a busy Thanksgiving or things like that, and I wish I had more pictures of her cooking or pictures of me with her cooking. And so this time I thought, you know what, I am going to sit here and have a conversation with my other grandma while she makes tortillas, and I'm going to take a video of it. So I have that forever. And again, I mean, just it's just a thought. If you have a loved one who does something like that, it's a really meaningful experience too. I'm very blessed to have had the ability to have this experience. So anyway, I'm going to go. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I'm currently lugging around very heavy boxes. So send me good big muscle vibes. All right, I'm going to go. Go drink your water. Go check out new Scary to Sleep merch. And go get some sleep. Sweet dreams.